Okay, in this episode, we are going to learn about what are the classifications of functions or method in C programming. You can classify the method or function into four categories based on the return type and presence of arguments in a function. So the first one is functions with return type and arguments. This one is the first classification of function based on the return type and arguments. From the name itself, you can see that this type of function has both a return type and argument. For example, this is a simple function declaration with function return type and argument int x comma int y. This is a simple example for declaration of a function that has both a return type and argument. Here the return type is int and there are two arguments of integer type. So if you want to call this function, you have to pass two integer values as parameters and you have to receive a return type from this function which is of integer type. Okay, so the second classification is functions with return type and no arguments. Here is the example for that type of function. Here a return type is present and here is the function name and there is no arguments. So for call this function, there is no need to pass any arguments to this function declaration. You have to get the result returned by this function. The third classification is functions with arguments and no return type. This is the third classification. So here there is no argument, so the return type is void and there are some arguments are present. So here this function has two arguments, int x and int y, and there is no return type for this function. So if you want to call this function, there is no need to specify any variable for receiving the data from this function definition because there is no return type, but you have to pass two integer values to this function declaration at the time of function calling. So here the function call for this type of function is like this: int sum int s equal to, you can call this function like this: int s equal to sum. You have to pass two numbers, two integers, 3 and 6. So you can call this function like this: int s is equal to sum of 3 and 6 because there are two integer arguments are present. And here you can call this function like this: sum function with return type and no arguments. So here int s equal to sum, that is enough because here there is a return type is present, so you have to specify a variable to receive the data returned back from the function declaration, and there is no need to pass any arguments. So here there is no arguments, but you have to pass two integer to this function declaration. So you can call this function like this: sum of 3 and 6. this is valid. Here there is no need to specify any return type because there is no return type is available. And the final classification is function without return type and arguments. This is the last classification of function or methods in C programming. So there is no return type and there is no need to pass any arguments for this type of function. Here is the example: void sum, because here the return type is void and there is no arguments are present for this function, because this type of function has no return type and this function has no arguments. So you can call the function like this, just specify the function name and its function bracket. That is enough to call this function. Okay guys, this is the classification of functions or methods in C programming based on the function declaration, function return type and its arguments. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next part.